Hey everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Steps to Stepmommin with Tilly. Today we're going to talk about actually meeting your stepkids for the first time. It is definitely an experience that'll be wrapped up with a little bit of anxiety on your end. Just not knowing if they're going to like you and overthinking that a little bit, right? So first things first, definitely have a good discussion with your partner before you meet their kids, right? Part of it is to discuss when you'll meet them. The other part is to discuss where you'll meet them. And then the other discussion is to just get to know them a little bit better before you're meeting them. When it comes to when, if you're looking for some magic number, I guess I could throw out 6 months. 6 months is kind of the time frame where, you probably have gotten to know your partner a little bit more and you're feeling a little bit confident with meeting the kids. But everyone's going to be a little different. If you want to wait a year to make sure that this is definitely going to be the person for you, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to wait, we only waited about 3 months. So that's not to say that at the time I didn't think, I definitely thought 3 months might be a little bit too soon, but I kind of was put at ease by my partner. So my husband at the time just had all the confidence in the world that we were meant to be together and that we would be together forever already. And that in itself can sometimes make you a little bit anxious because you're like, oh my gosh, why is this guy so obsessed with me, right? But it ended up working out beautifully. So we were on our way up to St. Augustine for our first trip together after being together for about a month and a half. And I had asked him the question of, when do you think you want me to meet your kids? I am interested in you, but I'm not saying that we have to do it tomorrow or it has to be anytime soon. Just know that I am thinking about it and I am excited to get to know them more. His response to me at the time was, I'm ready when you are. And that was awesome, and regardless though, even if they don't respond like that and your partner is a little bit more hesitant, that's okay. Everyone's going to have their different backstories and each child is going to be different. Each person is going to be different. You're going to be different than I was. Maybe for you don't want to meet them right away. And I do not. And again, that's your journey. Do not let anyone pressure you on meeting them later or sooner or however you're feeling about that. Okay. Second thing you decide is, where are you going to meet these kids, right? Part of that is going to be dependent on age. I met his kids when they were pretty young. So Huck had just turned 3 and Charlie had turned 6. So the obvious choice for us was the park, because it's someplace that I can interact with them, run around with them, get to know them a little bit better in that environment. You don't want to, at least in my opinion, you don't really want to do something like a dinner because you're just sitting there and it's one of those things that even for a first date, it's kind of awkward to go to dinner, right? So if you can do something that's like an activity with them, like I love mini golf, the arcade is pretty fun. Just something that you're interacting and doing like an activity with them, because I think it helps everyone to be a little bit more relaxed during that meeting process. So like I said, we started with the park. It doesn't hurt to it doesn't hurt to know a couple of things about the kids before you meet them. So I was always asking questions like, what are they into? What are their interests? Huck was 3, like I said, and his favorite thing, hands down, was superheroes. Still is superheroes to this day, which was right up my alley because I definitely was a Marvel geek along with the Trekkie. So if they would have said space, that would have been another thing I would have loved as well. So he loved superheroes. Again, he's 3, so not much else there. And Charlie was a rock collector, loved unicorns, and her favorite color was rainbow. During that phase of child development between the ages of kind of 3 to 5, 3 to 6, they're progressing in their vocabulary and their ability to conversate with you, right? So it's kind of like why in the midst of that developmental stage, when their kids are telling the stories, they're just kind of like, and then I had a blue ice cream cone and we walked down the street and yeah, did I tell you my ice cream cone was blue and then my friend, and it just kind of it's not very cohesive yet. So it's because they're trying to practice, right? You always have to remember that kids, I think something that really helped me as I was bonding with the children was remembering that a lot of the things that we're talking about, or a lot of things that they're doing, or many of the things that they're experiencing is all for the first time. So that's why when they get hurt, it's such a dramatic response, because they've never been hurt before. They don't really get hurt that often. So if it hurts, you cry and you scream. And if you're scared, you cry, you scream. And if you're happy, you just giggle and scream really loud. It's a lot of screaming. So that thought for me, remembering that this is all going to be for the first time, helped me to have more patience with so many different aspects of this journey. And this being one of them. So as I was on my way to the park, I definitely stopped at the dollar store. It's a kind of an easy backup plan for you because you're not totally reliant on your charming personality. I'm sure it's a beautiful personality. I have a great personality, but with kids, it's kind of hard because you're not their primary parent, and you're basically a stranger that they're meeting for the first time, but who is also romantically involved with their parent. Obviously they don't even fully grasp that at that age. Charlie, before I had met her, RJ had told me that she even asked him like when he was going to get a girlfriend. So she kind of was already in that mindset of knowing that there was something along the lines of relationships, and that girlfriend was different than regular friend. Huck, I think he kind of understood, kind of didn't. I don't know how much he fully grasped the fact that, he's going to mommy's house now and daddy's house now versus just being in one home with both of them, because the separation and all of that kind of stuff happened during those first couple of years of his life. So I stopped at the dollar store, things that I picked up. Talking about that age frame, 3 to 5, 3 to 6, Bubbles, hands down, going to be a showstopper. Everyone loves Bubbles. It's something that the kids can play with, you can play with, they can chase the bubbles, you chase the bubbles. So that's a great one for bonding. Sidewalk chalk is great. Charlie was definitely, at the age that she could draw, and she still loves drawing and painting now. Huck, again, not so much. So I believe I had also gotten them some kites. It's not always that windy in Florida, but kites are a very good option to have because dollar stores tend to have them in a bunch of different themes. So I got a unicorn one and a Spider-Man one because Spider-Man was his favorite and unicorns were hers. So easy peasy. And all of that costs less than $20. And honestly, you don't have to get every single thing. Get the bubbles, hands down, and then that's $5 and you're done. But again, it just kind of helps relieve some of the tension that you're going to be feeling in your body just because you're just meeting children for the first time. And you're probably thinking about a lot of other stuff of like, you're worried about if they're going to like you or you're going to like them because now you've really fallen for your partner and you're worried that this relationship might make it or break it. Okay. Don't put that much pressure on yourself. It's not gonna, first meetings, they can definitely go great, but they can also go poorly, and you can still progress from there and end up developing a really beautiful relationship with these kids. Because you're both going to be learning more about each other, them about you and you about them. You're going to learn more about patience. I have become more patient every single year. I already hear some of my friends laughing, thinking that I haven't. Because beforehand, I'm a very blunt person. I want to go. I want to get things done. I work in orthopedic trauma. It's just kind of how we are, type A personalities and all of that. So letting some of that control and letting some of that, and just letting the life flow and letting that relationship flow to the level of both of your comforts. Boundaries that you should keep in mind is don't expect. There are things like I wanted to hug. I love hugs, right? So I just wanted to, like, right away, I was like taken by these kids and was like, oh God, they're so cute. I just want to hug them and squish them and I'm just like that. So that was something that I would just kind of be starting to go for a hug. And I was like, oh yeah, don't do that. Remember, they need to come to you. Let them come to you for that kind of stuff. But you know, playing tag and all of that and all of those things is totally fine, right? Just always keep in mind that you're going to have your boundaries, they're going to have theirs, and you are probably going to be an integral part of teaching them what boundaries even mean, you know? So let's talk about the first meeting I had. So I'm on my way to the park. We get to the park. RJ and the children are waiting there for me. The first one that I met was Charlie. And Charlie, so adorable. She still is just the cutest little button. Charlie, what was interesting is everyone kept telling me that Charlie was a very shy child and that she didn't warm up to people very quickly. And so I had to keep that in mind, and I just had the expectation that I would just introduce myself and kind of just slowly either try to play or just kind of stand in the background or kind of swing just to like have my presence be known. She was standing next to RJ when I came up to them at the park, and we introduced ourselves to each other. So I said, hey Charlie, I'm Tilia. And she goes, hi, I'm Charlie. She giggled and ran off, right? So I didn't, like I said, I just kind of allowed everything to flow. I talked with RJ for a little bit, and then I tried to go over and talk to Huck just to be like, hey Huck, I'm Tilia. And Huck, unfortunately, again, he was he was 3, so he was kind of at the tail end of getting potty trained, so he had an accident and was really embarrassed, so I had to kind of step back and let RJ handle that. So as they were in the car, kind of changing his clothes, I went back over to Charlie and asked her, hey Charlie, what's your favorite thing to play here at the playground? This is the first time I'm here, so I'm really curious and I kind of just want to look around and play. And that sparked her interest. She was like, oh, okay, let me show you this. And so she started showing me all the different things, and as she was showing me, we ended up creating an obstacle course. And so that first time I met her, I got a workout in, guys. She had me climbing on the monkey bars, up and down the rock walls, swinging, jumping, all this stuff. At one point we played The Floor is Lava, and there was another kind of like a balance beam, and I would shake it and pretend it was an earthquake, and we just ended up playing all day. And that is another thing to really keep in mind. Try to reach that inner child of yours and how fun it used to be at the park, and laugh with them, play with them, ask them things like, what's your favorite animal? What's your favorite color? What shows do you like right now? Learning what their favorite shows are at the time is always pretty good too. Common one is Bluey. Every parent is going to agree with me on that one. Kids love Bluey. And sometimes just even watching a couple, I know it sounds silly, but even watching a couple of those episodes before you meet them and being like, oh, did you watch that episode where Bluey made pancakes? And they'll be like, yeah, oh my gosh. It's just something that, again, helps to bring everyone's guards down and allow for that better communication and allow for that better bonding to occur. So I got to really bond with Charlie in our first couple of interactions. Huck, again, was still younger and still was very much attached to his primary parents. You know what I mean? I'm not his biological mother, and his biological mother is a wonderful person. And so there wasn't any of that either. It's not like they had an absent mother that they were looking for a replacement for. I'm a bonus mom, and I love being their bonus mom. And so with Charlie, that was a much easier first interaction. Huck, there were some more walls and boundaries I had to break down with him before we got to the point of him being comfortable enough to, now we play together all the time. He snuggles me on the couch. He comes to me when he's upset. Now we have a really infallible bond, but it did take a little bit longer with him. An example of kind of how I started breaking down those walls with Huck is definitely, again, talking about his interests, talking about superheroes, playing action figures with him, to just kind of get that imagination going and understanding that I'm a safe person. A difficult thing that kind of actually helped to build our relationship was one day it was just me and the kids. I think we were about probably at least 6 months into the relationship. And I took them to the library, and then I was taking them to the Children's Museum in Fort Myers. When it comes to crossing the street, you always hold your kids' hands. Safety first, right? But Huck didn't want to hold my hand. And it was one of those kind of non-negotiables at the time, because again, you respect their boundaries, but when it comes to safety, he has to hold my hand, and he just didn't want to. So it ended up becoming like a little bit of a scene and a screaming match kind of in the middle of downtown Fort Myers, where I had to kind of grab his hand and just kind of pull him a little to get him across the street. And then after that, he was just crying, and he just wouldn't come next to me. And eventually I did get him into the car. And when we got to the museum, what I did was got him out of the car and I said, "Hey, Huck, just hold on a second." And I got down to his eye level and said, "Listen, I understand if you don't want to hold my hand all the time, and that is totally fine. I understand. But when I need to hold your hand is when we're crossing the street, because it's about your safety. I care about you, and I want to make sure that you're safe, because that is so important to me. I just want you to be safe, and I really hope that you can forgive me for yelling at you, because I didn't mean to. I wasn't yelling at you because I was mad. I was yelling at you because I was scared. I want to make sure that we're crossing the street safely. So please, can you just hold my hand when we're just crossing the street?" And he said, "Okay, Tilly." And as soon as we started walking towards the museum, because we were in the parking lot, he grabbed my hand immediately. And I will tell you guys, that story still pulls on my heartstrings so much. And that's another thing. You are able to talk to them like they're little people. Always mention to them when you've had a scuffle that it is about their safety, that you want them to be safe. And you don't need to say "I love you" right away, because that kind of pressures them to have these mixed emotions. Let them get to that point on their own, but you can say that "I care about you." That's an easier thing for them to digest at the time, is to say "I care." And as you continue to show that you care, their love for you will grow, and then they'll start saying "I love you." You know what I mean? So, and really now we actually have a really cute game that when we're at the house, I'll ask the kids, I go, "Do you know that I love you?" And they look at me and they say, "No." And then I go, "What?" And I chase them around the house until they say, "Yes, we know that you love us." And it's just a fun little cute like tag game that we play, but it's incorporating all the love and care that you have for these kids. So being playful, trying to relax during those first meetings, just to be yourself, you know what I mean? Because it's just like anything else. Be yourself. Don't go above and beyond what you want to do and what you want your expectations to be. I love playing. I mean, imagination improv was kind of my shtick. I growing up and throughout middle school and high school, I was always in acting. I was always in the plays. I was always having a lead. So for me to be playing imaginary games with the kids is just so fun for me. But that might not be your thing, right? Maybe you're better with board games and you're better with more of that kind of tangible thing. That's fine too. They're gonna kids are so flexible. They have many interests. So you don't have to just pinhole yourself into one of their interests. So after that, I'm just going to talk about a little bit of once they moved in and their first nights here. Because something that I wasn't sure that I was going to deal with was just, what's it going to be like living with them? So I met them at 3 months and they moved in after 6. So again, we move pretty fast. You don't have to take our timeline as your example. Take your time doing however you want to do this. But something that I wasn't actually prepared to deal with was the fact that they actually started sleepwalking a little when they got here. Sleepwalking and then nightmares were two big things. Before they had moved in with me, they would fall asleep with my husband every night. They just kind of had a family bed and they all snuggled together, and that's just how they fell asleep. Here though, I did want to have just a better separation of that, because it wasn't something that I was used to, and I wasn't able to fall asleep that way. And your needs are important, okay? Just because they've been doing it one way for this amount of time doesn't mean that every single thing has to stay the same. You're now a part of this family. They are a part of your life, and they're your family. You and your partner will discuss, and will have to discuss, some of those things that you'll need to pivot on. So when it came to the bedtime routine, I kind of looked up. So sleepwalking is actually pretty common in that age group, between the ages of 3 and 6. What makes it kind of more common is the situation that the children were in. When you have different environments and you have such different scheduling throughout the entire week, and you're dealing with all these different personalities, it ends up just causing something when it comes to the sleep-wake cycle. And so what happens is they'll get up, and when it comes to sleepwalking, sometimes they'll do things like they'll pick things up or try and organize things. And so what typically though would happen with both of them is they would walk over to our room and then just start mumbling to themselves. And I know some of you are like, that's scary. Yeah, it freaked me out a little bit when they first moved in, if I could be 100% honest. But it's not as much as we're going to talk about how we worked on that, it really isn't a big deal. Like I mentioned, it is a very common thing. So when that happens, you don't have to shake them. You don't have to be worried. You just gently kind of touch them enough to just guide them back to their bed. And you'll just say, hey, we're just going to go back to bed now. Just talk in a sweet, gentle tone. And they'll usually go back to bed, and they stay there for the rest of the night. If it happens again, just to do the same thing. Sometimes it would be a little more dramatic than that, where, specifically for Charlie, she would come in and just be sobbing. And it was just something, she had a lot of anxiety, and Huck might have too. I just didn't notice it as much with him, but it's the anxiety of just that this is a new environment. I am a new person in their life. They were staying, between that transition, RJ was living with his mother, so they had their grandmother and their father, and now the grandmother's not present there. And these are just changes. They're not bad changes. They're not good changes. They're just changes. So we did make a bedtime routine. And this bedtime routine, I'm going to tell you kind of how and why it works. One, kids just need structure. Having structure gives them the tangibility of expectation, where they know exactly what's going to happen every night that they're here. So their mind and body is already calm because they have the expectation of what is happening. The other thing is you should try and limit the TV time in the last hour of them before they're going to bed. So we still do watch TV up until about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And that's when we begin the bedtime routine, where they brush their teeth, pick out their outfits for the next morning, and then we start story time. Each child picks a storybook, and then we read the books. And then what we would ask them was, what are they going to dream about? So that they already are going to bed with a positive mindset and having something that they're thinking about for your dream. Not that it's a magical thing that's exactly what they dream about that night. Most kids still don't really remember their dreams. But you're already giving them that positive mentality before going to bed. And then the other thing that we incorporated was meditation. Us specifically, we incorporated tapping meditation. And if you're not familiar with that, it is an actual tactile meditation where you go through these tapping points, and then as you do that, it calms your fight or flight nervous system, right? And so as we were doing this with the kids, and with kids, this is almost kind of like a meditative, Simon Says. So it's another really great thing, right? If you need an example, the app, we just use the tapping meditation app. We've been doing it now for the last 3 years, and both kids sleep just fine. It was honestly almost like a miracle kind of thing with us. But that is something that you can implement if you do notice that with your stepchildren after they've moved in with you. So that's the end of this episode. So we covered a lot of stuff when it comes to meeting them and your first conflicts with them, and then maybe some things that they might be struggling with when they move in with you. I'll expand on these topics as I continue with this channel, but that was a lot of information that I wish I would have had on hand and readily available when I became a stepmom. So imparting that to you. Thanks for listening to Steps to Stepmommin with Tilly. Have a great day, guys.